Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Chuck Furuya Uncorked. I'm Chuck Furuya. Joining us today is my son, Cueille.
How's it, you guys?
What about, you want to talk about the, he's the creator, the visionary. He's the mastermind behind this whole project. And so, although my name's on it, this is Cueille's project. Cueille?
We're just setting this thing up to talk about the pure enjoyment of wine and kind of shed some light and maybe not make it so intimidating to get into wine. And, we bring on guests who we think have something, or you think have something profound to share. And
you don't think I have something profound?
I just don't know enough about wine to and just, make it fun and relevant and hopefully that each episode people can take more and more away from, and for me, I feel like I learn something every episode that I can apply to my job or makes me more and more interested. So I would hope that everyone that watches this or listens to this is learning along the way as well.
Okay, great. And also joining us is Mr. Chris Ramelb.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
So just to give you some background, Chris... The reason why Cueille and I asked Chris to come on is because, Chris is very well versed in mixology and beers and sake and wine.
And he's younger, Yeah.
But he's so he can give us some real insight into, the hows, the whys, the whens of enjoyment of not only mixologists' drinks, but sake, or in this case, wine. I think he can provide a lot of insight in that. And you're right. He's along the lines more of your generation than mine, and so he can give us a different perspective. In addition to that, he hangs out with all the mixologists and all the beer guys and all the, wine people and everything. So he has a good handle on what the industry in Hawaii is seeing.
What the landscape is, right?
Plus that, he is a Rudd Scholarship awardee. So what that means is that the Rudd Scholarship is given every year to the candidate who finishes with the highest aggregate score of level 3 for the Master Sommelier exam. So Chris in 2016, to put it in perspective, had the highest score in the world. Not in Hawaii, not in the United States, in the world. So, I thought he can provide a lot of different thoughts and insights for us for this podcast that's very different from everybody else. So do you want to talk about this wine since you seemingly poured it, or do you want to just dive into the whole talk story?
No, I just wanted to drink. I wanted to have something in my glass.
Okay.
Yeah.
And lastly, Chris was born and raised on Kauai, on the island of Kauai, and he started up grassroots from the bottom up, and he worked his way up. So he also, it wasn't about schooling and just solely getting into the educational part of it all. He worked his way up, from food runner, bartender, host, et cetera, server, et cetera. So and then sommelier. So he knows the whole restaurant field and tempo and art of doing dining and hospitality. And he worked with people like Mark Shishido at Alan Wong. So he has a lot of experiences that we can draw on, right? So Chris, let's just delve into it.
Sure.
Okay, so what really got you into wines?
Much like anything else, like dumb luck, right? Like being born in Hawaii, one of the most beautiful places in the world, having amazing parents, like I had nothing to do with that. Like it was all luck. My first job out of college from UH Manoa was at Southern Wine and Spirits, and it was their business analyst position. So I graduated in computer science, like many others. Didn't do anything to do with my degree, and just fell into the job and went from there. I just got lucky, really lucky.
Okay, and what was like an aha moment wine for you that you just went, wow, this is something? I know you enjoy beer and mixology and sake. What was an aha moment of a wine that really like, whoa?
That's a really tough question. It's like, equal opportunity alcoholic. Like you said, I'll enjoy anything with ethanol, but wine specifically was like, it's not just one moment. I can recount a couple for sure, but
share it with
us. Like it's the collective thing. Like why wine to me is so different than everything else was because like you're not expected to like it from Hawaii. Like you're not expected to be good at it. You're not expected to understand it really. That's not something that I grew up drinking.
Do your parents drink?
My father used to drink like Coors Light bucket ice, like just
Oh,
beers, you know?
uncle status.
Yeah, yeah. And my mom, gave up drinking when she had me.
I would have given up everything. I would have.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that I grew up with, so that's why it was so cool to me. Like it's a collection of moments, but it really was like the camaraderie. Like wine people, no matter who it is, they can. I mean, you gotta have money to drink really, really good wine, right? Like that's unfortunately to have the rarities, you have to have a lot of money. And like wine people were so generous, they were so kind with their cellar. Yeah, that's like all of the aha moments for wine for me happened when I never thought I would have the opportunity to have wine. So like went into Vino. The very first tasting I had there was at the old location, and I had to drop off, somebody from our company had to drop off notes to you for a Saturday morning tasting, which I wasn't invited to. And I begged my boss to like have the ability to go run those notes to you at Vino, just so I could earn your favor, or like just be introduced to you and like get into the wine game.
You had not met me to that point.
No. Just read and heard and, did
But
those
were you
things.
interested in wine?
Well,
at
yeah.
this point?
Well, because I was working at the company, right? So like I just wanted to prove like, hey, I take this stuff seriously. I want to whatever advance my career or learn more about the things I'm
Or
selling.
be good at.
Yeah. So yeah, I walked in to the Pinot Noir tasting and dropped off your notes. I remember parking in the loading zone, and you were kind enough to invite me to sit in a tasting which I definitely could not have afford on a $30,000 salary. And everybody there was so inclusive. So it was a Pinot Noir tasting, but I always tell people that I learned more about wine culture and aloha than I did about Pinot Noir that day. So that was a moment for sure.
And what was the other one you wanted to mention?
No, I mean just everything. Like just the reason why I love it so much, and the reason why I studied it so much is because it offered opportunities that I would never have, right? Like getting to work the floor at Canlis in Seattle, widely considered one of the best restaurants.
It was a James Beard. They won James Beard for best wine program.
Most outstanding wine list and best service.
Wow.
And shout out to local boy.
Nelson.
Nelson's over there helming the program. Kalihi boy, Farrington grad. If that doesn't get, that's as local as it gets right there, running James Beard Award.
Wow.
So we're well represented. So things like that, like getting to go to Sonoma and Napa and wherever, like meeting all these really cool somms. I never thought I'd have like wine friends across the country that I could, call and talk story with.
Or go out for a drink with if you're in town.
Yeah. Or get reservations at their places, I like sooner or later, like so for the master's exam, obviously it's tough, right? And it's not because the material is so tough or the study thing is so tough, but it's like you have to be obsessed with it for such a long time in order to actually get it, that like you need to have like this chip on your shoulder. You need to like make up stories almost, So and just be insane about it. So you have to pay your craft and like work at it and pay your craft, and then sooner or later it starts paying you back, and then it becomes like this symbiotic relationship. When you start seeing that reciprocated, like all I want to do is get better. All I want to do is study and learn more and try to be a better server so that I could have these experiences,
If I could just comment on the blind tasting portion of the whole examination. People think, well, this person can taste like this, they can taste like that, or, oh, man, they're excellent. It's really the pressure. It's not only what you smell and taste in a wine, it's the pressure that's put on you. That's why pro golfers hit 2,000 balls a day, right? Yet they'll shoot 77 or 82 on any given day. It's because of pressure. You understand what I'm saying?
One bad hit, well, it's like quicksand at that point.
Yeah, so you have to, you got to get into a rhythm. And once you're in the rhythm and that tempo, then things seem to fall into place. But everything has to be lined up. So like, I remember when I went to go take the examinations and whatnot, when I go to the mainland, man, I would get stuffed nose. My nose would be so stuffed I couldn't smell. And I would get all this rash over my body because it was Monterey, California, and it was cold, and so it was just, all these professional athletes like the swimmer or the guy playing golf for the Masters, they have these coaches to help you psychologically, emotionally be in tune so that by the time the Masters comes or by the time the Olympic Games come, you're in full swing. You're kind of like and that's kind of like the tasting portion. Everything's got to be in line for that day, and you got to learn how to measure stress in order for you to pass. It's not really a grade on your ability. It really isn't, because all these guys that have done, they were doing it every day for how many months, how many years of
years.
Of just tasting it. So they have the mechanics and the ability.
But the pressure.
It's just nerves.
So you have to be able to afford Ray Lewis as that's who Michael Phelps used when you refer to the swimmer. Just
Ray Lewis, the football player?
Yeah, that's who Michael Phelps' inspirational, motivational coach is.
Really?
Yeah. Before like big swim meets, he would.
So how was that going through the whole testings and everything like that? Did it make you stronger every time?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's what, people point to, like, why even take this exam? Like, it's a 2% pass rate and you got to spend so much money, and it's like, so, like, it's for whatever, like, for whatever reason, people question why you want to put yourself through hell. And it was always, to like chase something, right? You always wanted to be better, and this like gave me a tangible thing to say like, hey, look, I'm trying my best to do something, and like I'm not born with amazing ability or intelligence. Like I'm an effort dude. I'm try hard, and I think like that's where the value comes. So having these like very like tangible milestones, like the quartermaster sommelier exams, like that was really everything for me. It helped me like have a foundation. It helped me meet people. I know it's like, it's kind of asinine to say, where it's like, because it really was like the hardest thing that I did, and it's a very, very proud moment for me. But I thought of it when I passed, like, cool, I got a college degree. It really gave me like a cool foundation for knowledge. And now I get to do the cool shit that I want to do, right? Like I get to like study like things that I want, like champagne, or more in depth for whatever it be, Asian food and wine pairings. Like it really gave somebody a really good base, and then
to work from.
Yeah.
Good core.
Yeah, a great core.
So everybody talks about the tasting and the theory. What about hospitality? So previously, you were an analyst, right? And so then all of a sudden you start working in restaurants. And why do you think all of that is necessary in terms of, because I mean, really, it's about service, right? So,
Right.
So how was that necessary as opposed to a lot of people just studying for the other two parts, and the service part is more of a mechanical, robotic thing? That
Yeah.
you put the cork here, you do this. So why do you feel it's important for you that you worked restaurants? So just to let you guys know, he worked at Vino with us. He worked at Alan Wong's with Mark Shishido, and he opened Senia Restaurant, which was or is one of the hottest restaurant in Hawaii.
For sure.
He did the wine program there from opening on.
I also worked at Duke's Waikiki. What? That's where I got my volume from. No, and they're really big on hospitality too, right? And
so let's talk about hospitality.
Yeah, hospitality.
How's that important?
Obviously, it's the most important thing, right? Like, that's the one knock that people have with these. I say it like I'm a curmudgeon already, with these like young people passing the test so quickly. Like, it doesn't really give a totally accurate representation on hospitality. I mean, you have to pass this very grueling service portion, which is extremely hard, and that does test hospitality. But I think
True hospitality.
if you want to be a sommelier, like that's the one thing that you have to be good at. I mean, it's not memorizing subzones of XYZ appellation, or like properly identifying 6 wines in a row. Like that's really cool. That's super cool, and you got to be really talented and work really hard to do that. But like, if you don't care about your guests, then like all that is for nothing, really. So I used to think like, growing up in Hawaii, which is, again, like we talk about inspiration and drive, like what really drove you and what like you make up stuff in your head to like get yourself on, right? Like I thought that we weren't getting our fair shake. Like back in the day when you were coming up and we had Chef Roy and Chef Allen and all these amazing, the Hawaii regional cuisine movement
Mm-hmm.
and all that, like we were pretty much at the pinnacle, right? Of like not just having master sommeliers. 5 of the first 10 in America were living in Hawaii at one particular time, right?
Right.
You had 5. Like that was a running joke. Like you had to be from Hawaii in order to
They weren't
pass
all
this
masters
exam.
at the time, but they were future masters.
Mhm.
Eventually.
Half of the first 10.
Yep.
Right. So like, and then all of a sudden, where did we go? And we have like this amazing round of chefs coming up. These like really rad chefs. So I just felt like having this drive and making up something in your head, like we're not good enough, and I just wanted to help Hawaii have a seat at the table, right? So like that was the thing I made up in my mind to like study, but that was hard because I think like I saw it growing up here and studying here in order to pass this very rigorous exam as like a detriment, right? Like, oh, I'm in Hawaii, man. I'm so isolated. Like, we don't get good wine. We don't have like good food. It's like,
we
like,
don't have
whatever. Like,
exposure.
yeah. Nobody's coming. The beard guys aren't gonna come to visit us. And like, how are we gonna make a mark? But in reality, like, dude, Hawaii is the best place to learn how to be a sommelier. Like,
Yeah.
we're born with hospitality in our blood, right? Like, go honi honi, uncle and auntie.
Yeah.
Every time you walk in the door, like, you know, humility, like, don't talk back, like all these kind of things that we learn, like we govern ourselves,
It's part of our upbringing.
right?
Mhm.
Like we know we're gonna see the person, you know, in line at the poke counter or something, so you cannot like talk smack about somebody, or like, you know, we're supposedly like a really nice, hospitable people.
Yeah.
So like
Natural by nature.
yeah, by
right?
nature and by upbringing. So like
Mhm.
if that's part of our DNA, like, I mean, a lot of the sommeliers have to work at that. And
Mhm.
like for us, that's natural, you know?
So we kind of talked to Ariana about this earlier, but
Who?
Ariana.
I'm just joking.
Oh,
But
wow.
just to like
Oh,
like
you should heard what she said about you, bro.
maybe to like explain or go in depth a little bit more on your journey from that first wine tasting or bringing him notes to studying and what that process looked like to now where you're at, you know, for people that are like interested in getting into it,
Specifically like the study techniques and
or not only that, and just like your road, but specifically study techniques, but
Yeah.
also your road to that, and you know, like, because there's a lot of like from the beginning to now where you are now, but I want to hear about the meat and potatoes essentially, you know.
The number one tip I think is like surround yourself with good people, and that comes with like people who are way smarter than you and have way more experience than you, and then like people like what Madeline Trefon, Master Sommelier,
From Detroit, Michigan.
amazing human being. What she says that really resonated with me when we were at Paso in Wine Speak in January,
Which is an event in Paso Robles.
was just you have to be on a team where you don't have to watch you don't have to watch your back, right? Like having a good support system, I would say is first and foremost. I mean, they're not going to be in the room taking the exam with you or like holding your hand when you have a rough customer on the floor, but just having a good support system, which is really, really easy to find here in Hawaii. That's the main thing. Just know when you get into it that it's going to be a very long road. And you're going to, as much fun as it is, like we're literally studying drinking alcohol, which is the coolest part, right, about it. But like, it's really hard and it's really long. It takes a long time and it takes a lot of sacrifice for sure. Like that's, for me, I mean, years, starting 4 or 5 years back, routine was like 4 a.m, wake up times, 2-3 times a week, flashcards, maps, listening to podcasts, lectures, everything. Like it's a grueling thing in order to pass the exam, which is very theory driven, which is also the knock against like hospitality or whatever for that exam. I'd say you need both. You need to be world class at everything for that.
But if I can interject, it's not only all these things he's mentioning. He doesn't tell you, but it's about how he brushes his teeth and what he uses to brush his teeth, when he brushes his teeth. That's how into it this guy
I mean,
was.
I could go.
Because of the tasting.
How it affects his palate and what kind of water he drinks, what kind of food he.
Really?
I
mean,
could tell
this
so many
guy-
different things about.
This guy
About
is.
the thing.
You want to talk about the preparation today of the this new generation of sommeliers, it's pretty daunting.
I thought you were
for
getting
me.
into a joke.
No. And then the other thing that needs to be discussed, the financials of all this stuff.
Oh, it's crazy.
So how many times did I ask him, what are you eating tonight? He said miso soup with Spam.
Yeah, but that's because I like miso soup and Spam.
No, but he was essentially also thinking about saving money so he could buy wine samples. So this whole trek, this whole journey of going down whatever journey, you know, it's not just simply studying and having your nose in the book. It's many different facets, you know, in your preparation of the journey, you know, of walking down that path.
We don't even brush our teeth.
We know that. We know that about you for a long time. I just didn't want to comment. And I won't even get into the deodorant topic. Okay, we'll leave that one alone.
Yeah, it's all natural musk. No, I mean, yeah, there's tons of crazy little facts and anecdotes like that make you seem like an insane human being. And honestly, like, I don't know how much that actually helps, but I can tell you one thing, like, you touched upon the stress and the pressure of not just this exam, but like, you know, being at a top level all the time and like having to be on and having to like
on that world-class level. Like
on a world-class level. When you're with these other people and you listen to some of the things they're talking about, I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness, oh wow. You know, it's a whole nother platform people just don't comprehend because, you know, they don't understand that that's available out there, that the scope is that big.
I hated that though. Like when you're, so like you're one of the best in Hawaii, it's like, oh, you ain't that good then. So like, then all of Hawaii suffers because like I didn't bring my game every single day. Like I don't know how much that helped, but like if that helped me feel like I was suffering for my craft, and if that helped me be just a little better, then I was willing to do that.
Yeah, but at the same time, you mentioned, on all modesty aside, how many times when you mentioned Chuck, that the masters that you were grading or you were hanging out with at post examination, they would know who I am.
Oh,
correct?
for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so
they didn't have nice things to say about you,
but I'm from Hawaii, so they understand that the genesis of sommelier in Hawaii is something very strong and deep.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's a true statement. So besides for studying and tasting and all these things, when do you look? Again, your spirits, your beer,
mostly beer,
your sake. When do you look to enjoy a glass of wine, and why?
There's no such thing as stupid questions, but that's pretty close. Wait, when do I look to enjoy a glass of wine?
What reason?
Every time, all the time, every day.
But when
all day, every day.
When do you reach in your whatever you have?
Oh, as opposed to like
beer, wine, or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually, I drink mostly beer because I like quantity drinking and
cheap.
Yeah, I'm not
Cheap,
I'm
man.
not drinking these wines, man. I'm tasting them and spitting them out. You know, no, I mean, really, it's anytime, and that's why the house is filled with alcohol, right? Like, because at any point of any given day, depending on how I feel or what I've done in the past, if I'm stressed, if I'm not, if you know it's hot outside, if it's rainy, if my girlfriend's with me, like. All these different things contribute to what I want to drink. And because you opened Pandora's box and I have this like fair amount of knowledge on the subject of alcohol, like I get to tailor make my experience, you know? So I like to drink everything all the time. But
even the alcohol at Long's, drugs, do you add things to that, steep it? The rubbing alcohol? No?
I mean, there's Coors Light at Long's, right? There's like, like whatever. I think most people would be surprised to understand, like, even these, like, their most respected somms or, like, the people in their suit and ties and whatever, like, what do they want to drink after their shift?
Well, I mean, just to shed light on that, I don't know if this is something to share even, but when I, like, one of the first times I ever drank with Justin Park, who's, like, the guy right now in mixology.
One of the best, like, literally one of the best bartenders in the world.
He likes to drink warm Malibu rum. It was like when he was still at Manifest, it was they do this Christmas party in July and everyone's drinking and having fun. And someone brought him as a present, brought him a flask of Malibu rum and he kept it in his back pocket the whole night, pounding it.
Wow.
So I was like, I mean, this guy's the dude and that's what he's drinking. I don't mind drinking shitty beer and whiskey then, you know?
Yeah. And the worst somms or mixologists or whatever like make you feel bad about your choices.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the antithesis of hospitality right there. So I say eat and drink what you like. But yeah, wine is depending on the day, depending on, like I said,
I think
so
it's a
many different
mood
factors.
thing.
Yeah.
It's the ambient temperature outside.
Yeah.
You know, it's who you're with, the conversations,
The food you're eating.
the food you're eating. You know, is it lunch? Is it picnic? Is it dinner?
Right. But just
You
the
know?
bottle alone, like the you know, this is a half bottle, but usual bottles come with
Cheap.
no, definitely not. In like 750 milliliters, right? Which is 25 ounces, which is equivalent to about 5 servings. So like, can I take down a bottle of wine myself? For sure. No doubt about it. But the format itself like lends itself to sharing. So like if there's people around, like I'm absolutely opening a bottle.
And you talking about wine culture, that's what's cool about wine culture is that's what it's like you were talking about before, that's what it's for, and that and even the bottle is designed in that purpose, and that's cool.
You teach how you were taught, you know? Like I was brought in like, oh, you should try this. Here, we should pop this. You should open that. Like that's how I want to be too, you know?
So, I know this wasn't planned, but maybe you would like to discuss. First of all, Cueille, what do you get out of this wine inside your glass? What kind of smells do you get?
Deliciousness.
I mean, you know, the thing that you guys keep talking about whenever we smell wine is aromatics, and I feel like this wine has some of that.
Choke.
So to me, it's got some type of floral component like violets or something like that. It's got pepper inside. It's got gaminess, you know, roastedness.
I mean, when the
It's
first
got-
sip that I took too, it's just seamless from beginning to end, which I'm finding is very important. I don't know enough to honestly comment on flavors and stuff right now, but
Yeah. And what do you get out of this glass? Why did you bring it?
Because I was thirsty. I was thirsty and
How
I
come
knew
you
we were
just don't
drinking.
hook it up and IV it?
Trust me, that's what all the marks are for.
You'd be doing it in vain. Oh, you like that one? That was
I
a good
mean,
one.
to be fair, it's like, yeah, it's 27 minutes in and we got our first chuck pun. So we're doing pretty well in that regard.
hopefully it's not a snowball effect that it just
Jeez.
Okay, so tell us what you get.
Oh, no,
out of
I really enjoy this wine. I mean, not only did I get a chance to meet the human being that makes this wine, and I think he's a rad person.
Oh, you dropped the name over here.
I didn't say his name. But I really like, so this wine is Syrah from the northern Rhone of France. And Syrah/Shiraz gets a really bad name nowadays because people associate it with high alcohol, overblown,
tannins.
over-fruited, over-oaked. This is like Syrah in its most natural form, and I think it's like,
What is the wine again? Just so for people that are, what is the name of?
so it's Domaine Faury. Lionel Faury is the person's name. And this comes from the Saint Joseph appellation in the northern Rhone in France. It's pretty much all Syrah in this wine.
I think this is 100% Syrah.
Oh, cool. And that's what the name indicates. Like you won't see the grape name on the label because it's from France, but Saint Joseph indicates that it's a Syrah-based red wine. It's light and pretty for your typical Syrah, but it's the thing that catches me is its aromatics. And it's classic, so it smells like black pepper and purple flowers and beef jerky and all this cool things that like.
Rather than blackberries, black cherries, only fruit aromas. This is beyond that. And this wine also has a real savoriness that you sit there going, wow, it's like having long cooked foods, you know, beef stews and things that are very savory because they just meld in together, right? You know, that's what it is. So I just want to take a quick side trip on this wine.
It's great.
So this guy's name is Lionel Faury. And he, Ariana and Mark were talking about an event called Wine Speak, which I'm involved with. I remember the first year, I brought a white wine from this gentleman from the appellation Condrieu. The grape variety is called Viognier. Okay, and I brought a bottle of that to share with all these people on BYOB night, Bring Your Own Bottle night. Okay, and there was a couple of assistant winemakers at the time, and I poured them a little bit just to share, and I walked away. And they were very shy. They weren't the type to talk. And from a distance, I could see this sense of wonderment on their face. They were like, what the hell is this thing? Because it was beyond anything that they were experiencing in their neighborhood or up and down California, which is what they were mostly exposed to or had access to, right? And you could see the sense of wonderment. So they asked me, and I said, this is Viognier. And they both grew Viognier and made it. And this was like this aha moment for them. You could just see it all over their face. And, wow, imagine the possibilities of what can be with this grape compared to what we do. That's the whole moment. You could see it on their face. It was just so plain and it was just plain sight. And then 2 years later, then we bring the winemaker, Lionel Faury, to the event. And here's this quiet, reserved winemaker. And by the end of the second night, they were singing out, sitting, hanging out, because Lionel's very quiet and reserved. But they were singing, hanging out, and belly laughing together over jokes or whatever, and whatever. So that's the magic.
And he's also super intimidating. Like, he's like a hulking, like, he looks like French Brad Pitt.
Well, he won a gold medal for something in the Olympics,
Huh?
He represented France in the Olympics on a couple of things. It wasn't bobsledding or something, but he really did. He was a nationally recognized athlete.
So I like his wines, obviously, and I'm already like starstruck. But like to have this moment when we're all like guards down, had a little too much. It's awesome. Yeah, it was a really cool experience.
So that brings the whole experience to another level that Ariana was alluding to. The first thing is that you're talking about, instead of cherry, blackberry, plum, you're talking about now saddle leather and pepper and violets or some type of purple flowers. He said, roasted meats, beef jerky, whatever you want to say.
Rosemary.
These characteristics that have very little to do with the grape itself. It's somehow it manifests itself because of these vineyards, and these vineyards are steep and they're terraced, and it's mostly decomposing granite. The northern Rhone Valley of France. So that's second level. Then the third level, which Ariana was talking about, is the guy.
He cool.
And just, it's a way of life with him. He doesn't think of himself as some famous chef or some, has swag according to that. He was there to learn and share, just like everybody else. But, I mean, when you understand what he stands for, what he believes in, everything, it creates a whole nother level. And then you start interacting with him. Oh, my gosh. And that's the world of wines that can be opened up to you with just a little bit of...
I really wish we didn't talk about this wine because we get so little of it already. And Bobby Stuckey pours it at Frasca in his tasting menu too. So
Bobby Stuckey's a master sommelier out of Colorado, Denver. And Frasca was up for Restaurant of the Year, Wine Program of the Year, multiple times, James Beard.
And it's great.
And he's
awesome.
Very famous. See how he drops names?
But now we're not going to get this in Hawaii anymore. So bye-bye, Faury. We got to make better friends with him.
Well, play the trump card. Say, Chuck said.
You got to make better friends with him.
So, so this is that, Cully. This is a Syrah. So, by right in the appellation, I think you're allowed up to 10% of white grapes, Marsanne and Roussanne. But I'm pretty sure this wine, his rendition is typically, every vintage it might change, but I think it's mostly, if not all, Syrah.
Is this unusual to just be drinking a Syrah on its own without?
Well, my favorite thing to have this with is lamb. I mean, it's transcendent, that pairing. It's fireworks. There's a reason why it's a classic, but no, I mean, something as delicious as this, just drink it, right? Like we talked about all these like isolated flavors that we can pick out, but there's really nothing. There's like nothing in the world that has this combination of flavors, which is why it's such a special wine to me.
So you mentioned this with lamb. So let's talk. Let me ask you. Maybe you can share with us a couple of aha moment wine and food pairings for you that you tasted and you go, oh, this is what it's about. This is what it can be.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. It's like I'll go back to Color's point, which is it's hard for me. Like you feel inexperienced to like pick out these flavors or whatever, and because I think we look at a liquid and we look at it and say like, man, how can that smell like black pepper? Like I don't know, I don't get it. But like, dude, we've been doing that. We've had a sense of smell since we were born. Like that's it. Like makes us who we are biologically, right? We don't like bitter. We like sweet things. I don't know. there's so many, and the classics are classics for a reason, right? So you talk about like oysters and muscadet, or Syrah from the Northern Rhone and lamb. But I'd like to talk about like maybe the first time I was actually aware of like a beverage and food pairing. And that goes back to like Hanabata days, little kid time, when like grandma would take me in the station wagon to go to Hamura Saimin on Cueille. And every single time we'd go there, we'd get Diamond Head strawberry soda on top of ice in like the plastic cup with chips on them, and probably wasn't, thoroughly washed for 5 years. But that was the charm. Like it was so good. And like I grew up with that kind of stuff, right?
And with Simon.
Right. Like
yeah.
specifically.
Hamura's is famous for the Simon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They got a James Beard actually. But,
Did they?
Yeah. Historic. But it was so classic and so good. And like back in that days, you're not like you said, to your point, you're not thinking about, oh, why does this go so well, together? But that's what food and wine pairing is all about. Like it's this beautiful mix of art and science, right? Like you can talk about all these tangible things for like you pair usually red wine with meat. Why? Because the tannin in the red wines help break down the fat in meat. And there's all these like little scientific things that you can point to. We were talking about best foie gras pairings, right? With typically foie is served with dessert wine from Bordeaux called Sauterne. It's very sweet, very unctuous and bitter. But Chuck likes to do it with some alternative grapes, right? Bourbette, which is this red, sweet, sparkling dessert wine out of Piedmont, Italy. So it's
Low
like
alcohol.
this blend of art and science, and I think like it's really cool to talk about the science behind it, but at the end of the day, it's like how it makes you feel. So it makes that particular pairing makes me feel nostalgic. And whenever I go back home, I'm always going to Hamura Saimin and ordering Diamond Head strawberry soda on ice in a plastic chip cup. Now, in my adult years, after studying food and wine pairing, I boil it down into two different things, right? Essentially, you want either flavors that are comparable with each other, or things that are comparable with each other, and things that contrast each other, right? My friend puts it this way. It's parallel flavors, or parallel things, and perpendicular things, right? And you can do that across a variety of things. So it's not just flavor. We're not just... Syrah and lamb doesn't work really well just because the Syrah kind of tastes like lamb, right? Or adds flavors of rosemary, which we find always on lamb, right? It can be with texture. It is most often overlooked with temperature. So, like, looking back on that particular Simon pairing, it's because of the bubbles, right? So there's bubbles that mix with the starch, that carbohydrates of the noodles, acts as a palate cleanser. At the very basic level, you have contrasting flavors with super sweet and very salty for the Simon. And
hot and cold,
yeah,
too, right?
Temperature is like, nobody thinks about temperature for food and wine pairing, and it's like, that's the main thing, right? Because at the end of the day, you can like wax poetic about all these kind of things, but like, you just want something to gulp things down with, right? So like, that's why shower beers are so awesome, because you're taking a hot shower and you're drinking a cold beer, and there's things there, for certain...
Makes the beer taste extra cold.
Yeah.
Like going from the jacuzzi to the swimming pool or something, right?
Yeah, and it does that with every sip. But like for certain food and wine pairings, like to be a little extra, I would have like a temperature gun, so it measured surface temperature. So certain things, like if it was a broth-based dish, I would want the broth. If it was a cold soup, the broth and the wine to be about the same temperature. Just, I don't know if that helped or if that hurt my cause.
Is that your philosophy?
No, I mean, I'm sure other people have thought of it before me, but like certain things, yeah, for like certain, not consommé courses, but like,
I think you gotta be careful of that because of alcohol levels. But let me say this. I want to go back to his idea about foie gras. And he mentioned Sauterne, and he mentioned that I would do a Bourbette, right? So Bourbette is a sparkling, light-colored red wine, typically, lower in alcohol, fizzy, slightly sweet, from Roero, which is in Piemonte, same area as Barolo and Barbaresco and Moscato d'Asti in northwest Italy. Okay, besides the fact this is kind of like along those lines of what Ariana was saying in terms of the cranberry with the savory Thanksgiving turkey.
Isn't that your line?
Yeah, she said it. And so it refreshes.
But you got it from you.
I'm not sure where she got it, but it refreshes your palate so you can go back to eating that rich, savory food.
Yeah.
But it can't only be about sweetness. The other thing that people don't consider is if you look at Roero, although there's clay to the soils, there's also marine-influenced soils, and there's a lot of sand in the area. So that's why it's not as esteemed for growing Nebbiolo as Barolo and Barbaresco, for instance. But still, it creates minerality in the wine. And minerality is also an aspect that people don't consider when pairing wines and foods. I'm not saying to get too technical and focus on that, but it adds to the vitality and the freshness and the palate cleansingness of the wine instead of just being sugary sweet and gummy and whatever. It's that minerality perks it up just like the bubbles does, just like the acidity. So it's very multi-dimensional. My point is when you're pairing wines and foods. And the second thing I want to say about that is in discussion with some of the people here the other night. They were talking about, my wife makes excellent bolognese. I mean, it's really good, and I can't get enough of it, man. I eat that stuff 5 days a week. It's so good. But it's really hard to pair wines with. So everybody says, no, try a light Sangiovese. It don't work, with Cheryl's version. I'm not saying for everybody's, but for Cheryl's. So then I remembered, even Gocetto has a hard time because it has this thick skinness at the finish. So the thing that I just recalled from doing these podcasts is Mark Shishido's line. He always says, sometimes you got to take a big bite and a small sip. Sometimes you got to take a small bite, big sip. Mm-hmm. And to that, I would say, the solution was a rosé, but perhaps the rosé was too strong in the finish. So that's when I go back to, I've been thinking about that thing since then. I would add a couple ice cubes in there, so it makes the rosé cooler. And the melting ice brings down the bitterness naturally, just like adding a little bit of distilled water or something to a whiskey of some sort. It just smooths it out a little bit.
That's just like the Diamond Head strawberry soda.
Exactly. It's the same thing.
Otherwise, too sweet and syrupy.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Or even too acidic, because that got citric acid too.
But I'm just saying that it could be something simple for all of you. Just by diluting it, just because it's on ice, it makes it colder, more refreshing, et cetera, et cetera. That can also help you with pairing. It's not just
temperature.
Yeah. So just like we've been talking about wine and food pairing all day today, and that the last shoot you had us taste a wine that was purely for cleansing your palate, and then something else that went with the food a little bit better. Is that something you guys think about when you're pairing wine? Is
Absolutely.
A wine that is just a palate cleanser, and then something else that is maybe accentuates
I think if you're
a bit?
fine dining, you're going to think about these perfect pairings. Perfect pairings happen once every 1,000 times that you try and you really know what you're doing and you really have worked with the chef to create something that creates this incredible dynamic that you sit there going, oh my goodness, I've never experienced something like this.
Is a perfect pairing.
And there's other pairings that you sit there going, they don't really clash with each other. They just kind of meld together.
That's 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah,
but the perfect one is 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, exactly. And so the point of the story is that you just got to adjust, and that's on the fine dining side. But on the casual side, when you go to a cafe or bistro somewhere along the Mediterranean, they're just gulping the wine with the food. They're washing it down. And that's all it's doing. So that's what the rosé did in the last episode. And so that it's just different takes. And the bottom line to me about that, those kind of discussions can happen to everybody, however they want, with whoever they want to talk about. Purpose of this podcast is just purely enjoyment. So if it means me adding an ice cube, just like we do that one episode with the Lambrusco on the rocks,
then you're going to do it.
And it's super hot outside, and the ice is the key, because you don't want ice that melts fast because it's going to dilute the beverage too quickly. You just want some kind of ice that sits there and cools it down without watering it down, without melting, and then you just down it. And then at that point, it's just about pure enjoyment.
You got to drink it fast.
Yeah. It's the same thing with the strawberry soda. If you go to Hamura's and you let the strawberry soda sit there inside the ice, it's going to melt.
Especially with how hot it is in there.
Yeah, they have a couple small fans at Hamura's, man.
If you don't sweat,
and you're eating a hot Simon.
If you don't sweat, it's not a good bowl of noodles. Straight up. I bring a noodle shirt. I bring an extra shirt.
See how he is?
Noodle shirt.
I told you, I wondered about him. So, Chris, you brought up a question one time about mentorship and how important that is, and how do you select mentors and all that stuff. You want a little discussion on that?
I mean, yeah, sort of. I don't want to offend anybody. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, you gotta learn under Chuck Furuya. Like, his word is, like, whatever. But like you said,
we're not talking
like,
about Chuck.
I got you pushed me out, and you helped me get access to other mentors, and I think like, without that strong mentorship, and it's not like ever explicit lessons, right? Like I said, it's not like, oh, come sit on my lap, boy. This is what you got. Like, this is what you did wrong. This is like, like, here's how you taste. Here's how you, like, this is what you did wrong to that guest. Like the best students, I think, learn from, like, not, like, they take lessons away when the teacher's not trying to teach them, right? But like, finding strong mentorship is important. Otherwise, it's like the blind leading the blind, right? Like, especially in this career track when there's not a lot of the old school guards still practicing, right? I think finding the right mentor is important. I don't know how else to expound on that, except that, like, if we're being really honest, there's a time where you took a step back from mentorship, right? Yep. There's a time where, so like,
why?
Well, I told Chris, I tell all these people, I'm not here to spoon feed. Otherwise I'm not helping you for the long term. Mm-hmm. That's what I told you. You come work with us, you polish glasses. If you just come in and do it for 1 week, 2 weeks, I'm not helping you. You gotta do it so well that everybody sits there going, that's the best glass polisher I've ever witnessed, or that's the best food runner I've ever witnessed, or whatever the task cutter is.
If you cannot cut bread correct on my floor, what makes you think I'm gonna let you pour wine?
I don't know who said that, but I remember
one mean guy.
But I'm just trying to say, it's the embracing the details of doing your job well. And if you think you're above that, when you crash, you'll crash all the way down the bottom because you don't have solid fundamentals going up.
So I think the takeaway here is like me not talking about how to find a great mentor, but me trying to explain how important it is to be a good student. Yeah. Right? Like,
that's so good. Like,
where are all the kids like me when I was coming up? Like, show up or just be the first one there and be the last one to leave. And like, don't take, for me, it's hard because I wasn't working full time at these places, which already I felt guilty for, right? Like, I don't want to cut the line, bro. Like, I'm here to pay my dues. I'm here to earn it. So even more so, like, I gotta work even harder so I can earn the respect, not just from the Chuck Furuyas or the Mark Shishiros or the Kevin Toyamas at Halekulani of the world. I'm not trying to just garner their praise or their respect. Like, you gotta be the hardest working person in there. So like the dishwasher looks at you and like gives you the, oh, what's up? Or like your servers or your captains.
Out of respect.
Like, yeah. It's not just getting these guys approval. Like, if I didn't like befriend all the amazing people at the other, like the captains and the servers at the places I worked at, then like I would be nothing without those people,
Yeah, I think so. I think it's you win everybody's respect because you've done the job completely.
When you're a team in a restaurant too, right?
Yeah.
And that's hospitality, is if you're going to be a dick to your dishwasher and then come out on the floor and serve your table.
To be honest
to
be honest with you, he mentioned something a little while ago that, why did I step back from mentoring and stuff like that? Because people would say you're a Chuck Furuya boy or you're a Chuck Furuya girl. What does that mean? I don't spoon feed anybody. So you polish glasses, you wash dishes, you cut bread. And how long? I'll let you know when it's time.
Oh, the bread was so hot.
He's always loafing around. So anyway, the whole point of the story is, so the whole point is that you make your own path or growth or rate of growth by how much you embrace the concept of paying your dues and learning that thing so well. So how can you be a Chuck Furuya disciple? You've made it yourself. You may have had some guidance here and there, but not very much. I don't give a lot of guidance. I'm not like Mark.
Yeah.
I just say, you prove to me. And then you show me that you've studied it, et cetera, et cetera. Then you ask me questions and I'll answer it to you. If I, I mean, it's just, you got to do the work.
Yeah, but you give the word. Like when you give the word, when you speak on somebody's behalf, then like it opens a lot of doors. So that's the biggest
The Godfather.
cost of mentorship right there. It was like, oh, Chuck said, oh, okay, cool. Chris, I guess you can come to Alan Wong's, which was amazing. It was an amazing time, for sure.
Okay, so now let's segue to community. How important is community? That's something I know that's very important to you.
It is. I mean, I don't know how to put it into words, but like, that's the whole thing, right? Like,
You seem to be the center of community, whether it's
that's
mixologists
kind.
or wines or...
No, I just like to drink, and they like to drink too. But
Oh, I get it. You like to drink free. I remember that.
True. No, I mean, community is. I mean, it's everything, right? Like, let's work together. That's the main goal, right? Like, it's hard because where does your sense of community begin and end, right? Like, oh, I'm from Cueille. I'm a Cueille boy. Like, cool. That's my hood. That's my whatever. I'll get one tattoo of Cueille. Or no. But that's not it. Like, I live on Oahu now. Like, I should get the island chain. Yeah, like, oh, cool. Like, that's my community. Like, Hawaii. Like, I like to think that, like, as much as I really try to represent Hawaii and I really try to help galvanize, do my part to galvanize the community here, it's my community is like, you got to try to do right by everybody, like every other human being in existence. And I think I'm trying my very best, especially in times like this, to be respectful and think on behalf of everybody else, right? But it's easy to bring it back a little bit, it's easy when your leaders in the community are doing the right things.
Mm-hmm.
So when they stress community and like work hard and be kind and bring everybody in, let's be inclusive, like, oh, this guy's not a part of USBG or whatever, United States Bartenders Guild, like, let's still invite him to these things. Oh, this guy, like, whatever, is not necessarily a wine person, like, let's still invite him to these tastings. Like, I think when your leaders are the people like that, it's so easy to fall in line and it's so easy to pass on. Like, you teach how you were taught, right? It's important. The end.
And don't you think it's important to continue that thought
For
process
sure.
moving forward
For
for
sure.
the new generations?
But it's the same thing too, right? Like, if you don't, like, you teach how you were taught. So like, the people who inevitably find themselves in these positions of influence or power, like, if they were brought up, not caring about hospitality or not having those same values of like team first, Hawaii first, then like, that's a double-edged sword. Like, we're in trouble then.
That's the future right there. That's what the future is going to look like, essentially, right?
So they're
I mean, not our future, but if that were the case,
Right.
would be what the new future would
So people who find themselves in these positions where they can take on mentorships or when they can take on proteges or students or whatever, like, they're usually really busy because they're usually at the place where like they find themselves relied upon, right? And that could get us in trouble because you gotta make time. You gotta make time for, like, even if it's the people that like don't necessarily prove themselves as students yet or like prove that they're worthy of your time. If I could be so bold to say that, like, you gotta make sure nobody falls to the cracks. We gotta take everybody seriously. We gotta be inclusive. Cause otherwise, like if those who can don't, who will? And it seems, it's a scary time now when like people losing their jobs and like, a lot of the old guard and the people who are doing things the right way, like, who knows what the restaurant landscape is going to look like when we come back from this kind of stuff. So I think continuity is important. Taking
Right.
care of everybody.
So, Chris, I'd like to do some wine and food, a little bit of wine and food thing, but another question I have for you real quick. So how do you search? Where do you look and whatnot in terms of looking for value-driven wines?
It's the same thing as like mentorship, right? Finding your good weed man, right? Like, get a good drug dealer. Like, find somebody that like you trust. Find somebody that you trust, and have them work with you. Like, build a relationship where you can be very honest with somebody, right? And say, hey, I have this much money to spend. Find me a good bottle. And the main point of that is like not just like the mentorship thing where it's not like here's how you find the best mentor, but here's how you become the best student to attract the best mentor. Like here's how you become better at finding cheaper wine for better, cheaper wine, knowing what you like and why you like it, right? So like being able to have the things
And what
in your,
that's worth,
right,
essentially, right?
right, but not even that, because you got your weed man to tell you that, right? Like what you like and why you like it, and if you can add those things in your vernacular, like then it gets much easier to. For example, like, is it red or white? Is it dry or sweet? Like, does it have sugar? And is it fruity or earthy? Like having these three very simple questions that you ask people on the floor serving wine to this table is like, as a consumer, me knowing that, hey, you know what, I might not have like a 300 bottle seller that I can rely on, like whenever I want a specific paint or a specific color off the palette, like, but today I got $15 to spend and I want a white wine that's like really crisp and refreshing with no oak, from France. Like if you can get that kind of stuff, then I think like that's better advice than like, oh, shop for this particular region or shop for this particular grape. Like,
But,
just
on that restaurant thing, as I was talking to Ariana about, is the one question I ask when I'm on the floor is, what wine do you drink?
mm-hmm.
So the answer they give me is white, red, rosé, sparkling,
Mm-hmm.
fortified.
But you're looking for
dry, sweet, full-bodied. Like that's when I'm providing. They've given me information now because most people don't know what body is. Most people don't know the difference between fruit and
Right.
earth. So by me asking that one question, I'm not like interrogating
Right,
them.
and by then you're
It
relying
tells
on
me
your
what price range
Right.
they want.
But-
And so I'm going to recommend something that's close to what they're liking using my expertise.
Right.
And then the other thing is I might recommend something and explain why that goes with the dish and why. So and let them make the choice.
right.
And so I think that rather than me sitting there saying, do you like dry or sweet? Do you like fruity or earthy? Do you like old world, new world? I think that's too many questions for the average Joe Schmo. So
Yeah,
for the
on the
viewer,
restaurant floor.
for the
sure.
viewer, just pay attention to what wines you like. You go to a restaurant or you go to a wine store to look
Take a
for something.
picture.
Yeah.
Take a
Tell
picture.
them what you're looking for. And then hopefully if that person is open to it and has that ability to recognize what you're asking for, then hopefully they can guide you down the right path. Right? I think that one question is so important in restaurants.
But that's all, yeah, for sure. For
But you have to have
restaurants.
the experience and the expertise.
So yeah, you're
to-
relying on your expertise, knowing like, hey, I almost guarantee know what.
Yeah.
Or
But my expertise is not to show off. I'm using my expertise
To
to tailor
exactly.
make the choice for your taste,
Yeah.
Right.
the customer's
Well,
guest.
but for someone in my position was why I'm trying to strive to learn wine
because
better.
you're not at that one question yet.
Oh, I don't know what the hell that wine is. I can't better serve you based off that one question, essentially.
That question is awesome for restaurant floors for sure. But also like, if I'm answering that question, then it's like, I don't know, Heineken, like Echigo, like Asahi, and that would not tell you like that I actually want, oh, we're out to celebrate though. Like I want Burgundy.
Yeah, but
man.
at least if they say Ichigo or something like that, they're telling you they like beer, they like something slightly apparently sweet. They like something fizzy and the kind,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'd like to then take a break right now. Sorry, guys. Just take a little break. I'd like to reset things, and we'll come right back to do a little exercise using and understanding Chris's perspective and his learned knowledge or whatever, and then and
Whatever.
hopefully it'll be something interesting. So we'll be back. Aloha, everybody. Welcome back. Episode number whatever. Kali Furuya, Chris Ramelb, and myself. So every segment we try to do something with a little bit of wine tasting, a little bit of wine enjoyment, the hows and the whys. And this one I decided to include a little bit of a food. So the theme for this particular tasting will be, Chris, you came up with summer wines that are really delicious for the summertime, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first wine you chose was the Skouras Zoe, correct?
Mm-hmm.
He wants to do it.
Oh no, I cannot let Chuck pour, right? I'm supposed to pour.
Yeah, you pour.
For you, right? Oh,
No.
never mind. The moment's wasted. Sorry, cut. I'm just joking.
That's why I was really looking forward to this Chris Ramelb episode. Ooh, I was so thrilled. Oh, I got to hang out with Chris Ramelb this week. So, okay, so why? Let's just break down the wine first.
What is this wine, first of all?
Oh, go ahead.
You tell them.
It's all Greek to me.
It's from Greece. So this is depends on the vintage. This is typically 70%. So it's okay. Let me take a step back. This to me is a quintessential Greek country wine, meaning this is a very style of wine that would be served at a cafe or a bistro.
What is the name of it?
So the name of the winery is called Domaine Skouras. His name is Giorgio Skouras. He's Burgundy trained, and many people say he is key to bringing Greek back onto the contemporary world-class stage. More often than not, he celebrates indigenous grapes. In other words, those that are from Greece. And so this is the case here. This is 70% typically, it changes every year, 70% Roditis and 30% Muscaflero. The Roditis comes from, where does it come from? Nemea. And all from the Peloponnese, which is the southern part of Greece. And the Muscaflero comes from Martinia, which is also down there in the Peloponnese. You can see this wine is very aromatic.
Thank you.
It smells like it possibly could be sweet, but you can see it's not. I'm fine. It's kind of like medium dry, dry. And so these aromatic grape varieties connect with foods in different ways. In addition to that, this wine is effortlessly light in body. And then if you look, it's got a real crisp, lemony acidity. So
And what is the alcohol level?
try look. Okay, so Chris, why did you select this wine?
It's delicious, right? Like, can't we all agree that it's
Jeez.
just super, super delicious? I mean, in the summertime, you don't want something. I mean, it's basically summer 365 here, right? So we want something that works well with our cuisine, and obviously with really, really warm weather. I'm not here to slug down, 15% alcohol red wines that are over oaked and like fruit bombs for the most part. But I think it really, like this particular wine, really has a big window with food. And we talked about like having this specific, like having a perfect specific bottle for me based on my mood, based on my stress level, what I ate, who I'm with, all that kind of stuff. Like this kind of transcends all that. Like,
Checks all the boxes.
yeah, I mean, just I was gonna say pop the cork, but you can't even do that. It's a screw cap. Just open the bottle and drink it any time of day. It's really like whenever I'm at the beach, it's in the cooler. We have a bottle of it in the fridge at all times. It goes well with all kinds of food, all kinds of company, and like I don't feel guilty opening it up and drinking just half of the bottle, right? And moving on to something else because I can afford to do that based on the price, and I'm gonna drink it the very next day.
And what is the
Yeah.
price?
Probably around $13
In the store?
in the store. Yeah.
I think I paid $13.99 for this wine.
At where? Arfield?
You know what's funny? Yes, it is available at Artfield Wine Company in Kailoa. It's $12.99. At Tamura's, not Tamura's,
Fujioka's.
I kind of remember being 13 something a bottle, but I could be wrong.
I think it's $12.99.
And then this food writer, very famous food writer, I'm not going to mention names, she was thrilled. She called me the other day because she found it out at Foodland Kapolei. So the very fact that people are going out and asking for these wines,
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool change. Again, one of my goals, one of my missions is, as I've told both of you, at this age, at this point of my life, is how can I affect change? The very fact that this person can buy it out at Foodland Kapolei, I mean, who's going to go into a store and say, you guys got Skouras? So I think that's a huge thing in terms of, if you guys want to try this wine, go to your store and ask for it, man. Okay, the dish that I created, I came up with just for this particular pairing, is something that you would have during the summertime.
And you put the herbs in it for a reason?
Yeah. And so this is just a mix of greens. Typically, we buy it from, what's the name of it? Metro Grow, which is in Kaka'ako. He grows his own things hydroponically. It's just a mix of different lettuces and greens. And just slice some Japanese cucumbers from Whole Farms.
Oh, cucumbers.
Oh. Wow, man. That's why these kawaii boys, I tell you something. So then Cheryl, my wife, bakes this chicken inside the oven, just simply with olive oil and herbs, I think. I mean, I can ask her, but I can't see her that far. And all it is then all I did was just cut up some herbs that we grow outside. So it was mint, basil, oregano, and thyme. And I just diced it small, mix it up with the greens, some sliced onions, salt, pepper, white wine vinegar, and a little bit of olive oil. That's all it is. So the aromatics of all those herbs, that's what makes it connect with the wine. Mm-hmm. When you taste it.
I wish we had smell-o-vision. This wine is so aromatic. It's so floral and pretty, and just like you said, it smells like it tricks you.
$12.99.
Yeah, you think it's gonna be sweet, and it tricks you because like on the palate it's like so bright, and like I don't like to use the word acidic, but like because it's not appetizing at table, but there's acid here, which is why it works so well with the vinegar and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it smells like herbs too. At Azure, at Royal Hawaiian, Micah Suderman pairs this with I think it's onaga and like a take on pho and onaga. So there's a lot of like there's broth there, very minimal, but there's a lot of that Thai herbs. Mm-hmm. And this is a super herbaceous floral wine too. It's crazy good.
I added the chicken because this wine has this real crisp lemony edge to it. So it just cuts through all that stuff. It just refreshes your palate between bites. So again, a Greek country white wine intended to wash down the food, keep your palate fresh and alive, produced from 2 indigenous grapes from Peloponnese down in southern Greece for $12.99 at a store. So good call, Chris. And if you keep this well chilled, I think it's great for summer warm weather sipping. We have warm weather 365 days of the year, so.
Porch pounder.
Where does he come up with all these things?
Bro, if the chef sliced the onion.
I think it's all those Diamond Head strawberry sodas he drank when he was a
You got to coin that term. Ariana's coining the Gram Som, and you got to coin the porch pounder.
Gram Som is good.
That's super good.
I'm surprised you didn't take credit for that phrase. No?
That's not mine for sure. Bro, if the chef sliced the onions a little bit more thin, would be cherry.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
I knew that too,
Did you really?
Yeah. I looked at it, but I wasn't going to redo it. Cheryl slices it, shaves it. It's just very thin.
Cheryl's good at everything.
Yeah. Especially selecting husbands.
Auntie Cheryl, can you make the salad next time?
Yeah.
Okay. So the second wine that Chris Ramelb selected for summertime sipping.
Did you booby trap this? You booby trapped it.
No.
It's not cold enough.
It is.
Sure. I'm telling you that onions, man. Little thinner. Little thinner.
Mm-hmm. You taste the herbs inside, right? Mm-hmm. How it connects with the aromatics of the white wine.
This kind of reminds me of that story of you guys making that wine on the rocks with basil or rosemary or what was in it?
Yeah, Modesto.
Yeah, but in the salad being that.
Mm-hmm.
And this wine is so good.
There's a little mosquito in here. I'm getting bit.
Okay, so
I'll give you a rinse.
Chris, you explain to us what why you selected this wine. Please, first of all, let's hear you pronounce it.
This is all French to me. I don't know. I got a phone call this morning telling me how to pronounce it, but I don't know how to. Can you?
So his name is Patrick Bottex, right?
Not Botox.
No, and he's from the Bugey appellation, which is right adjacent to Savoie on the eastern part of France, on the western side. There is 3 major appellations. Cerdon is this one, and it's one of the highest elevations, and it's dedicated solely to production of sparkling wines or fizzy wines like this. La Cueille is one of the highest peaks So there's 7 peaks. This is the highest. So that's what that's about. This is a blend. It changes every year, but it's mainly Gamay Noir, which is the grape variety you see in Beaujolais, with like up to 10% or maybe a little more some vintages of Pulsard, which is indigenous to Savoie. So it's a blend of those. This wine is made in what's called the method ancestrale, ancient method, the method ancestrale. And it's a simple way of trapping the carbon dioxide that's released from fermentation, making the wine fizzy and capping it so it remains in solution. And many people will say this method predates the champagne method champenois, which is the way champagnes are made.
In fact, one of the synonyms for method ancestral is the method rural, or the rural method.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Wow.
I don't know, you're dropping all this like random things and like making me pronounce these. So like, let me share like a little quick story.
This is delicious.
Going to a place, a very, pedigreed restaurant on the mainland, sitting down and looking over the wine list and ordering a bottle of wine that I sprung for, that I definitely...
Oh, cheap then.
Yeah, cheap. And having the Somm, who had the best of intentions, come up to me and overpronounce French things. Like, if you want to find one way to alienate your guests really quickly, that's it. Like, and I'm not saying you're doing that, because like we need to pay respect to the region. We need to pay respect to this human who made this amazing wine, but like doing it so in such a way to like make me feel like an idiot. And I study this stuff, like I felt like an idiot basically. Like that's, I don't know. So it's pronounced Bugey, right? Bugey-Cerdon, but it looks like buggy or bouguet, right? So like.
So what happened was, we had talked about this wine before. So I know the chef from the area. So I finally got in touch with him this morning. And he's from right there.
Where it's pronounced, or
how it's pronounced. So I had to write it down phonetically, just to make sure. Yeah, it's Bugey. I don't know.
And what does this cost a bottle?
Probably little over $20, like right around $20. But like you talk about beach wines
Or strawberry soda.
Soda. This is like adult strawberry soda in the best way possible, and that's like not to minimize the talent and the origin of the grapes for this wine, like, but it's like adult strawberry soda. And I hope nobody hears that will get offended, because this is honestly probably one of my favorite wines on the entire planet.
Wow.
Like on any given day. This is something that I reach for all the time. This is something that goes well with all kinds of food. But this guy, Patrick Bottex, he has about 12 acres.
5 hectares.
Yeah. Again, like throwing stuff that nobody understands out. 12 acres. Dedicated, and he makes one wine, and this is the wine. So that roughly translates to 3,000 cases a year, about. So by the time New York, and they pour a lot of it, and San Francisco gets their hands on it, what's left for Hawaii?
There's not a lot.
But it's increased recently because of efforts from like Chuck and Roberto and all those people like
I've been
speaking
carrying
on
this
their
wine
behalf.
since the 80s.
Mm-hmm. And if we weren't first to market, then like you think we'd get any of this? No.
So just to let you know, this vineyard is way the hell up there, man, and it's very hard to farm, and then to make the wines and everything like that. And then when you smell it, it's not just cherries, strawberries, etc. There's a strong minerality here, because there is some limestone up there, and that's what this marine white soil creates, along with the clay, creates this unique kind of minerality, this uplifting etherealness that makes the wine beyond fruit characteristics. Then to the hassle of catching the bubbles and stopping the fermentation at the right point, so that you have that absolutely pinpoint fruit acid
Sugar.
teeter-totter.
Fruit, acid, and sugar.
And sugar teeter-totter. That, when you have a lemonade where there's too much sugar inside, it gets cloying after your second drink. So to be able to orchestrate and fine-tune.
That's mastery.
That's mastery.
That's mastery.
Still capture the minerality that comes from the vineyards, and then to have this incredibly foreign, hard to understand label, So sometimes it takes a little work, but to understand what this wine offers. But at the same time, this is a very unique wine, and it's one of the one of a kind in the whole world of wines, and it's completely enjoyable, especially well chilled on an especially hot summer humid day. That's what this wine I think is perfect for.
Yeah. I mean, to stress on the listener too, it is sweet. There's some sweetness there, and the sweetness.
I wouldn't say it's overly sweet.
No,
I wouldn't
not at
say
all.
it's like a dessert
Not at
wine or
all.
thick or luscious. It's very light on the palate.
But the sweetness, like it varies vintage to vintage, yeah. So, like again, it's a rural method. Like there's no real exact science in determining like
Right.
this is the
It's
correct.
done by balance.
Yeah.
And what would you
My
eat
taste.
with this? Like, or is this more so standing on its own?
I mean, honestly, nothing and everything. Like it's amazing. I think like it can sort of be like the substitute for amabile lambrusco, so like semi-sweet lambrusco. So I think of like charcuterie.
Yeah, but that stuff is heavier than this.
So you think of like the region too, though, like the cheeses of the region. Salty charcuterie for sure. It tastes like mountain apple.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's this like distinct mountain apple taste. Nothing and everything, but my perfect pairing, if you allow me to be like a little technical,
Yeah.
was we did it at Chef's Counter with this foie that wasn't foie, like it was rolled into a log, so it wasn't like just naked normal foie, right? Like there was some process to it, there was some things added to it. It was covered in green almonds, which provided texture for the bubbles, and it was served with a little bit of slightly candied strawberries and strawberry consomme. And for me, that was one of the perfect pairings. That it added texture for the green almonds. The bubbles gave it like sort of like this Pop Rocks and Coca-Cola effect, you know. And then in terms of contrasting flavors, we had like strawberry, like it tasted like strawberry. The consomme had a little bit of viscosity, so having these bubbles like cut through that. And then the sweetness, foie for me always deserves some sort of sweetness. Having a touch of sweetness with foie that wasn't like just like cut and put on the grill, but like processed and had things added to it was a really interesting and cool pairing. And it was awesome because like usually those courses come in the middle of it, and we talk about fine dining and we talk about sequence, like how are you going to follow up a dish in the middle with like a super heavy dessert wine like Sauterne, which is a typical classic pairing. You can't. And the next course will be compromised because of it. But having something light and, like Chuck said, not as sweet. It's.
I think this is also the perfect way to end the meal because it's like the bourbette. They're so uplifting. It's like having a sorbet as opposed to something rich and
I
heavy.
mean, at the same time, you could use it as an intermezzo, right? And I don't want to like deter people to not have this at the beginning of their meal because, like, I didn't eat dinner yet, and I'm perfectly happy having this wine to start.
And I also think it's perfect for warm weather sipping. You have an ice cooler full of ice, a couple of bottles of this inside.
At the beach, hanging out. Yeah.
And just pour little bits of the wine so it stays super cold. And it's a shower beer effect, where you're super hot and everything. You have something really like, thirst quenching and revitalizing and,
I feel like Auntie Maria Lani right now.
This is good.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
What Chris said, mountain apple, but it's not overly sweet.
There's
It's not
Suriname cherry in here too.
It's not overly bubbly. The effervescence is lighter, so it's not overpowering.
Yeah, and there's also a little bit of rhubarb in here. It's got this pungent Suriname cherry rhubarb thing going inside. So it's not tutti frutti. Is my point. It's got some savoriness. It's got minerality to it. That's a cool thing.
All you have to do is really just buy it and chill it and drink it, and I feel like you're gonna be converted.
Yeah.
Like we had a sparkling wine tasting, and I blind tasted a lot of these like
Famous people.
no, like regular humans on sparkling wine. They asked me to throw an event for them, and we did like really cool champagne and like prosecco, and we had all these kind of things that were bubbles, and I snuck this wine in there, and I asked people like randomly what their favorite wine is out of the flight, and like the majority is this. How much would you pay for that? Knowing that it's pretty rare, knowing that he makes less than 3,000 cases, knowing that it's a really, really niche kind of wine. Like, I don't know, like $70, $60. Cool. Well, with that amount of money, you can get 3 bottles, and it's delicious, and it's something you should always have in your fridge.
There you go.
Good.
Questions for you?
Nope. That was perfect.
So, Chris, thank you very much for coming, being part of this thing.
Thanks, Chef.
Yeah.
Color.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it. Your insight was different and valuable. No, I seriously, thank you very much.
Cool.
So to
Wash your
all of
hands.
you, this is
Speaking
the
to the
end. Who? So thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you had fun. We hope you learned a thing or two. Check us out next week. It'll be a new episode, different people, still in search of the enjoyment of wine. Aloha, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.